This video is brought to you by John Robson Guitar Tuition. If you enjoy the content, please consider supporting the channel by enrolling on a course, purchasing some guitar lessons or a t-shirt, or you can join my Patreon. Now, on with the show. Hello chaps, welcome once again to John Robson Guitar Tuition. As always, I do hope you're well. Now, I think it's fair to say that the year 2020 is one that not many of us will remember with much affection, but if you're a classic rock fan, then there is something to be salvaged, I think. Some positive spin you can put on the year that's just passed. And that's because there were a whole load of great albums that came out that year, many of them, and that's what we're dealing with today, from artists and bands who've been established for decades and show no sign of letting up the pace. So today, what I'm going to do is take you through my 5 favourite albums from 2020 that were delivered by bands and artists who qualify for a bus pass and a pension. Here we go, starting with
Deep Purple, Whoosh.
Yes, now I make no secret of the fact that I'm a fan of the Steve Morse era of Deep Purple. I think this lineup of the band, I guess now we've lost John Lord and it's Don Airey on keyboards, but that aside, this kind of current incarnation of the band since Steve joined, I think has produced, some consistently good music, and this album is no exception. Admittedly, like most of the albums that we're talking about today, it's not an album that's going to win over skeptics. If you're not already a fan of the band, then it's not going to probably convince you, but neither is it one of those albums that is only there for true fans and collectors only. Most of the songs on this album, you get the feeling, started off as impromptu rehearsal room jams that then sort of solidified and crystallised into the songs that make up the track listing, and obviously, then get lyrics set to them. From the funky, heavy riff of the opening track, Throw My Bones, solid stomping classic rock of We're All the Same in the Dark, and the honky-tonk rock and roll of What the What. It's just, good time music, and you can tell, let's face it, none of these lads need the money. They're not doing it to pay the mortgage. They're doing it because they love it. And, it's a bunch of utterly world-class musicians, superb virtuoso musicians, enjoying themselves and, putting down songs that have evolved out of the kind of jams that they just do for the fun of it. And that is a very, very engaging, kind of recipe for me anyway to listen to. So if you like Deep Purple and if you like just great musicianship, rock musicianship, then check this album out. You probably won't be disappointed. Next.
Bruce Springsteen, Letter to You.
Okay, yes, the boss is back in town with Letter to You, and frankly this album could have come from any period in Bruce's career. It's got that, I think, identifiably, characteristically classic E Street Band sound, even though 2 of the, kind of founding members aren't there anymore. Obviously Clarence is no longer with us, Clarence Clements, but he is there in spirit courtesy of his son, Jake Clements, who plays sax on this album. And Danny Federici, another sad loss, he's no longer with us, but his organ kind of role is taken over now by Charles Giordano. Steve Van Zandt is back in the fold, because didn't he leave at some point, I think just after Born in the USA? Anyway, I don't know how long he's been back, but he's certainly back there now. So you've got twice the guitar contingent, because Nils Lofgren is still there. And it's just that characteristic E Street Band sound of crunchy Telecaster guitar sounds with the kind of Hammond organ weaving in and out of it, raucous sax, a strong beat, and Bruce bellowing out some of his strongest melodies, for years really. Great album. It could have come from any period in his career. As I said, this could have been the album that followed Born in the USA just as easily as it came out in 2021. Bruce is on fine form vocal wise. He's got that characteristic Springsteen kind of growly, gravelly kind of thing going on. And as ever, loads of great, strong melodic hooks here. That's something I don't think Bruce gets enough credit for. People talk about his lyrics, which are great a lot of the time, but, he has a really, really kind of finely tuned ear for a catchy melody as well. And, it's all on offer here. Again, not an album that's going to win over the skeptics, but, if you're a fan, you're probably going to enjoy this one just as much. Right, so let's see what's next.
Blue Oyster Cult. The Symbol Remains.
Okay, possibly the most significant album on the list here, because this is the first Blue Oyster Cult album in 2 decades. It's essentially now just Buck Dharma with a supporting cast of musicians. But, take a listen to this album and just tell yourself, as you're listening to it, the guy who's playing these guitar parts is 73 years old. He is shredding like a hungry 20-something GIT graduate. He is really, really on form on this album, guitar-wise. Song-wise, it's typical Blue Oyster Cult fare. Catchy songs that possibly anybody else would deliver in a way that would make them sound a bit cheesy and a bit cliched, but, not here. It's whimsical enough to avoid sounding like a stereotypical cookie-cutter 80s FM radio rock band. I mean, the opening track, case in point, the opening track, That Was Me, it kicks off with this kind of ballsy, heavy, crunchy rock riff and continues like that, and you're settling into it, and then, whoa, left turn, and suddenly you're getting this kind of fusion-y kind of funk thing for the solo, and then you're back into the rock vibe again like that, and it's these kind of changes of direction that you see all over this album that are done so effortlessly and sound so natural and not in a kind of contrived way that I love about this. And then you've got, good time rock and roll, tunes like, Train True, and then whimsical kind of proggy stuff like The Alchemist. All over this album there is utterly blistering, shredding, but melodic, tuneful, virtuoso guitar playing. Great songwriting, and it's got the sort of production where you feel like you're in the room with the band, and frankly, what's not to like? Great, great album. Go and check it out. Next.
Rick Wakeman. The Red Planet.
Yes, indeed, another progressive rock album. Let's get this out of the way before we go any further. It's an instrumental prog rock album, and if that ain't your cup of tea, you're not going to enjoy this. But Rick is joined here by the English rock ensemble consisting of Dave Colquhoun on guitar, Lee Pomeroy on bass, and Ash Sohn on drums. And what a noise they make. Essentially, it's a 4-piece band that sound as big as an orchestra. And it's got that majestic, epic, orchestral kind of vibe going on. What it lacks, though, is that angular, disjointed, kind of, listen to us doing these clever meter changes, aren't we clever kind of thing that a lot of prog albums tend to have, and that sort of turns me off. It's all about melody and fluency and just the flow of the music here. And I guess when you kind of listen to it deeply, you will discover all of the kind of clever stuff bubbling away underneath, but it's not wearing it on its sleeve. Some fantastic guitar playing on this album, courtesy of Dave Colquhoun, and of course it's a keyboard heavy album, isn't it? It's a Rick Wakeman album, but there's still plenty, as I say, for fans of guitar to get their teeth into, and just the whole production on the album sounds utterly beautiful as well. If I could make a comparison here, it sort of sounds a bit like, do you remember that sort of classical music, rock music crossover band from the early 80s called Sky? John Williams, Herbie Flowers, all that kind of crew. It's a bit like their first album, and there's also, Rick kind of dials in a very fluty kind of sound on his whatever keyboards he's using, and ends up giving it a slightly sort of camel snow goose vibe in various parts of the record. It's a great album. It's just fluent, clever, melodic, tuneful, beautifully played, virtuoso performed music, and again, what's not to like? Well, probably everything if you're not into progressive rock, but if you are, check it out. Next.
AC/DC, Power Up.
Yes, indeed. I couldn't let any rundown of classic rock albums from 2020 go by without mentioning Power Up by AC/DC. Well, you know what's going on here. It's an AC/DC album. Brian Johnson, unlike Ian Gillan, whose voice has kind of lost some of its top range over the years. I still think with Ian Gillan's voice, though, in terms of the elder statesman quality that he's got now, that sort of gravelly, growly kind of thing he's got going, I still think with his voice you've probably gained more than you've lost, but to Brian Johnson, he's still up there in the the kind of higher registers, belting it out like a man possessed. it's an AC/DC album. You know exactly what you're getting with an AC/DC album, and this album doesn't disappoint. It's a funny story, actually. I think it was Angus Young was telling this in an interview once. He's saying he was being interviewed by some rather condescending journalist who said, what do you say to the criticism that you've released 12 albums and they've all been exactly the same? He says that's complete rubbish. We've released 13 albums and they've all been completely the same. This is a band who know what they do well, and they just crack on with the job of doing it well. And once again, you don't get the feeling that they're doing it here to pay the mortgage or, you know, because they need the money. They're just doing it because they love doing it, and that is infectious when you listen to it. Big shout out here to Stevie Young, Malcolm's sadly departed Malcolm Young's nephew, is doing a sterling job as the kind of powerhouse engine room riffmeister on this album. Basically, you know, the old firm is still in business and they're cranking out as good a product as ever they did. So if you like AC/DC, then you want to check out this album. It's as good as, you know, Back in Black or any of the what are considered classic albums from them. I just think it's up there with all of them. Black Ice, there's another one from, what was that, 2008? Again, great album then. Fantastic AC/DC album. If you like them, you'll like this. So there you go, folks. Those are my favourite 5 albums by bus pass holders and pensioners from the year that's just left us. I'll link to all of these albums down in the description box below so you can check them out, and let me know what you think of them in the comments by all means. Enjoy hearing what your opinions on these kind of things are. But that's pretty much it for today, folks. If you've enjoyed the video, please hit the subscribe button and the notification bell if you haven't already done so, and why not give me a like while you're at it. If you're interested in supporting the channel, all the links are also down in the description. Thank you so much to everyone who supports me in any of those ways, and thank you in advance if you're thinking about doing it. Don't forget the 5 p.m. Friday live stream tomorrow, 5 p.m. UK time. I'm sure you know by now, but if you're new to the channel, we sit around and talk about whatever crops up for an hour while we're having a beer. It's a great way to kick off the weekend. I'd love to see you there, but for now, I'll bid you all a good day and say thanks for watching. Thank you for your time. Look after yourselves, folks. Stay well, stay safe, and above all, stay sane. Bye for now.